All right, for the next week or so, we're actually going to use the same story, so the same assignment that I just posted on Google Classroom, and we're just going to do sections of it, not the whole thing at once. So our first step is to go into Google Classroom. I'm going to present as well, and in Google Classroom, there's a new ELA assignment. It's called Brown Girl Dreaming, Student Edition Unit 1. So it's under classwork, and then it's called Brown Girl Dreaming Student Edition 1. And just like we have been, we'll open it up. We'll let it take you there.
Oh boy.
Choking on my water. When it gets you there, you can click on the assignment, the Brown Girl Dreaming Student Edition, Unit 1, and open it on up. Okay, so should have a nice dandelion at the top. It's by Jacqueline Woodson. I'm going to give you guys about a minute and a half to go ahead and get into that assignment. Okay, when you're there, you can type done in the chat so I know that you're there and we're ready to go.
That's disgusting. What did I miss?
Charlie, we went to Google Classroom and we opened up our new ELA assignment called Brown Girl Dreaming. So we're just
From Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline.
Yeah, I don't know who played it, but we'll play it in a few minutes. So we're just getting it pulled up, and when you're done, you just type done in the chat. Give you a minute or so to do that. And then we'll get going. No, Dallin, I don't think you'll need a pencil and paper. You can leave it there just in case, but
How do I submit the other test that we were supposed to do last night?
what test?
The science one?
Oh, I can show you that later, but it's not due until Friday, so you have time if you want to fix it up and stuff too and make it cool. So you don't have to submit it just yet. All right, I am going to go back to the screen. So we're going to read, it's all poetry. We're probably going to look at these couple of poems for the next week or so. I'm going to hide this thing at the top so we have more room. So we're going to have it read to us today. We might take turns reading it later on. But it's a decently long piece of poetry. And if you look over on the right, there's these 3 sections over here. The essential question that we're still talking about for the whole unit is what are some of the challenges and triumphs of growing up? And then there's these different sections. We have making meaning, language development, and effective expression. We're going to start in the making meaning. And notice when you open it, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things to do for that. we are not doing all of it at once. Because if you open up language development, then there's 4 things to do. And then if you open up effective expression, there's 3 things to do. So that's a total of like 15 activities to do for these poems. We are not doing them all at once. We're going to do 1 or 2 at a time over a span of like 7 or 8 days. Because there's no reason that we need to look at one thing or look at the poems for 1 day and be done. That would take forever, first of all. So for making meaning, we're going to start in making meaning. And today we're only going to do the concept vocabulary activity and then the first read activity. Those are the only 2 things we're doing. There is absolutely no need to go on and do any of the other stuff because we're going to do that like tomorrow and then Monday, Tuesday. So we will do all of these things as we go through the unit. So just stick with us and what you need to do per day and you'll be good. No need to go ahead of us. Does that make sense? Sound good? Cool. So what we're going to do first, before we even start, I'm going to go back to this show thing. Let's just look at the background real quick of kind of what these poems are even about. So they're called Brown Girl Dreaming. The author is Jacqueline Woodson. Let's read about the author before we do that. It says, Jacqueline Woodson was born in 1964 in Columbus, Ohio. She recalls being the happiest as a child when she was writing. I wrote on paper bags and on my shoes and denim binders, which was a real thing, denim binders. In 2008 Newbery Honor winner, Woodson believes that writers need to be honest and to listen to their voices of young people. Okay, so these stories are all, not stories, poems are going to be more about her childhood experiences because this whole overarching unit is about childhood, right? So that's the author of our story. The background here is that as a child in the 1960s, Jacqueline Woodson moved with her family from Greenville, South Carolina, to Brooklyn in New York City. Her memoir, Brown Girl Dreaming, tells of her childhood experiences growing up in both places. In a memoir, an author recalls important events in his or her life. Brown Girl Dreaming is unique as a memoir because it is written in verse, or as poetry. So memoirs are usually written by the person who is talking about themselves. So it's kind of an autobiography in a sense. But this memoir is a little bit different because it's written as all poetry instead of stories. So we get the pleasure of analyzing all of her poetry. Are we excited? Yeah, kind of. Poetry's fun. So before we even read, I'm going to hide this again so you can see. Before we read, we're going to do the concept vocabulary part. So if you go to the right at making meaning and drop down all those activities, we're going to start with the concept vocabulary. So if you click that and open it up and you look at it, there's this button that says open activity. I guess you can't click on the open activity part, but you can click on the part that has the chart and it opens up for you guys in just a bigger screen so you can see it better. Okay, so I'll give you a minute just to open that up before we read. Okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're good with that. Okay. I'll let you guys open that up and then we'll talk about it.
How do I get there again?
How do you get there? So it's in the activity. I don't know what to call it exactly. And if you're looking over at the right at the student edition part, underneath the central question, there's a tab called Making Meaning. You'll click on that and it opens up concept vocabulary, first read, comprehension check, all of these different little activities. And then you click on concept vocabulary and it opens up another little tab and you can click on the chart and it'll make it bigger. Okay, does that help, Charlie?
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so concept vocabulary. What we're going to do, you're going to see these words while we are reading these poems. So we have squish, humming, twist, twirl, slushes, and feathery. Before we read it, you guys are just going to like write down a 1 through 6 of how familiar you are with these words in order. So each one will get a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So just as an example, let's say I'm most familiar with the word squish. So I'm going to put a 1. Oh, there it is. Not an 11, a 1. I thought it would go in the middle, but it goes all the way to the left. And then let's say number 2, I'm next familiar with humming. And then next familiar with twist. And 4 with twirl. 5, I'm okay familiar with slushes. And then 6 is feathery. Not super familiar with it. So I'm going to assume that your guys' order of familiarity with these words is not in this order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just take a minute, read through these words, and put in order how familiar you are with them. So if you're most familiar with the word twirl, that'll be your 1. If you're least familiar with the word squish, that'll be your 6. Okay? Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Okay, go ahead and take a minute and go ahead and do that. Keep in mind that it's the easiest to do this with us instead of going back and doing it later. So if you want to stay caught up when I give you the time, it's a good time to do the work.
What do we do when we're done?
I'm done.
All right, cool. Jay, that's not letting you click it?
Does it just save it for us?
Yeah, I will save it for you.
Okay.
I don't know why it won't let you click it. If you're trying to click the open activity part, it won't open. But if you click on the actual chart and get like the hand with the finger pointer, that should let you open it. And then if that doesn't work, I will help you out later when I come upstairs and help you get it open. Alrighty. I think you guys are finishing up, so let's go ahead and keep going. So you're going to see these words as we go through and read through this. They are actually already highlighted for you. And if you click on them, it tells you the definition, which is super cool. So even as we read, it's not like you're going to have to like highlight it for yourself. It's already there and underlined and in blue, which is awesome. We will be using these words later. We'll circle back to these words to see if you're more familiar with them later in the unit, which I think is super cool that it's going to circle back to things. So for the concept vocabulary, that's all we're going to do. We ranked those words. So you can go back up to the concept vocabulary part and click on it again and close it. It saved your work for you. Okay. So what we're going to do next is this first read underneath it. So you'll open up the first read, and there's this chart again. And we're going to go over the chart before we actually read it so that you guys can be looking and listening for these things while we read. Okay, so once you're there, you can open that up as well by clicking on the chart, and it gets bigger for you. And there's sections to write in. Okay, so when you get there, you type done, thumbs up, however you want to do it. Cool. So we're opening up the first read. Alrighty, so a lot of you guys are there, so let's go ahead and just look at this. It says, use this graphic organizer to record your first read ideas. So the first time we're reading this, you're going to just kind of put down your ideas based on the section. It does say right here, add the title. The title of this story is called Brown Girl Dreaming. Okay, so go ahead and type that in. That is the title of our story. Poems. I keep calling it a story, but it's a poem. Okay, and then there are 4 sections on this. Remember, as we read, and you guys have it pulled up in front of you, you can highlight and underline and write notes to yourself as much as you want in this, because every time you open the story back up, they'll all still be there. It saves everything for you. So for the first part, it wants you to notice who is the story about, what is happening, where it is, when it is happening, and why those involved react the way they do. So you can, as we go, you can type it in while we listen. You can wait until after. I'm going to give you time after to fill it out. If you have a pen and paper and you want to write it on the pen and paper to start, that's totally fine. Or if while we're reading you notice something, you can highlight it and like highlight it green if you'd like to. Write a little snippet of information about why you highlighted it, and it's there for you no matter how many times you open up the story. Okay? I'm going to delete it though, because that's not an important thing. So the first thing you're going to do is just see what you notice about the things. The second one is to annotate, and this means that you are actually highlighting and marking up the passage. So you can be highlighting things that you think are important. This is poetry, so you can be highlighting things that maybe repeat. Repetition is a pretty big thing in poetry. They go back and repeat themselves about something that's super important to them. So maybe you notice that and you want to highlight those types of things. You can also maybe highlight things that appeal to your sense of touch or taste, smell, hearing. What am I missing? Sight. I was like, what's the 5th sense? So you can highlight anything that has to do with the 5 senses. Those are some cool things and some things that you might want to revisit later. On the bottom here, we have connect. So again, you can be highlighting as we go, but this is to connect ideas within the selection, so the thing that we're reading, to things that you already know or what you've already read, or even to your own life. So if something happens and you're like, oh, wow, I can really connect with that. I can see myself in this story. That might be something cool to write there. So you can make the connection to your own lives, to someone else's lives, to other books that you've read, just to some information you already know. But that's where you're adding notes on this one. And then finally, the last part, the responding, you'll want to wait until the very end of the reading because you're going to be writing like a 1 to 2 sentence summary, just so that it summarizes the whole thing for you and you don't have to reread it every time you open it back up. And we will do this part that says comprehension check. Oops, that didn't highlight very well. It's not highlighting. The comprehension check we're actually going to do tomorrow as part of our activity, so we don't need to worry about that. It's just a 1 to 2 sentences about our poems here. Okay, so you can leave this open if you want to. You can do it after. You can write it down as we go. But does that chart make sense in what you need to do in the chart? Cool. All right. Then our next step is to actually listen to the story. You can have it pulled up on your end if you'd like to, so you can highlight in your book and write things down. I'm going to have it pulled up on my Google Meets as well so that you can see it. I will push play, so you don't need to play it on your side. But keep in mind that anytime you go back and open up this thing and like redo it, or if you want to read it again, you can always have it read to you as well. That's an option for you guys. But I will push play on it and we'll read through it. You can be filling out the chart at the same time. If you find something important, you can highlight things, whatever you want to do to mark up the text. Are you ready? Thumbs up if we're ready. Alrighty, make sure you're following along, please. Here we go. Get rid of that.
From Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Memoir in verse. Background. As a child in the
Oh, it's gonna read the
1960s,
background first.
Jacqueline Woodson moved with her family
Oh,
from
well.
Greenville, South Carolina to Brooklyn in New York City. Her memoir, Brown Girl Dreaming, tells of her childhood experiences growing up in both places. In a memoir, an author recalls important events in his or her life. Brown Girl Dreaming is unique as a memoir because it is written in verse, or as poetry. About the author. Jacqueline Woodson, born 1964, was born in Columbus, Ohio. She recalls being happiest as a child when she was writing. I wrote on paper bags and my shoes and denim binders. A 2008 Newbery Honor winner, Woodson believes that writers need to be honest and to listen to the voices of young people. From Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Brooklyn rain. The rain here is different than the way it rains in Greenville. No sweet smell of honeysuckle, no soft squish of pine, no slip and slide through grass. Just Mama saying, "Stay inside today, it's raining," and me at the window. Nothing to do but watch the gray sidewalk grow darker, watch the drops slide down the glass pane, watch people below me move fast, heads bent. Already there are stories in my head, already color and sound and words. Already I'm drawing circles on the grass, humming myself someplace far away from here. Down south, there was always someplace else to go. You could step out into the rain and Grandma would let you lift your head and stick out your tongue. Be happy. Down south already feels like a long time ago, but the stories in my head take me back there. Set me down in Daddy's garden where the sun is always shining. Another way. While our friends are watching TV or playing outside, we are in our house, knowing that begging our mother to turn the television on is useless. Begging her for 10 minutes outside will only mean her saying no. Saying, "You can run wild with your friends anytime." Today, I want you to find another way to play. And then one day, my mother comes home with 2 shopping bags filled with board games. Monopoly, checkers, chess, Ants in the Pants, Sorry, Trouble. Just about every game we've ever seen in the commercials between our Saturday morning cartoons. So many games, we don't know where to begin playing, so we let Roman choose. And he chooses Trouble, because he likes the sound the die makes when it pops inside its plastic bubble. And for days and days, it is Christmas in November. Games to play when our homework is done, Monopoly money to count, and checkers to slam down on boards, ants to flip into blue plastic pants, chess pieces to practice moving until we understand their power. And when we don't, Roman and I argue that there's another way to play, called our way. But Hope and Dell tell us that we're too immature to even begin to understand, then bend over the chessboard in silence, each becoming the next chess champ of the house, depending on the day and the way the game is played. Sometimes, Roman and I leave Hope and Dell alone to go to another corner of the room and become what the others call us, the 2 youngest, playing games we know the rules to, tic-tac-toe and checkers, hangman and connect the dots. But mostly, we lean over their shoulders as quietly as we can, watching, waiting, wanting to understand how to play another way. Gifted. Everyone knows my sister is brilliant. The letters come home folded neatly inside official-looking envelopes that my sister proudly hands over to my mother. Adela has achieved. Adela has excelled at. Adela has been recommended to. Adela's outstanding performance in. She is gifted, we are told, and I imagine presents surrounding her. I am not gifted. When I read the word twist, twirl across the page, when they settle, it is too late. The class has already moved on. I want to catch words one day. I want to hold them, then blow gently. Watch them float right out of my hands. Sometimes. There is only one other house on our block where a father doesn't live. When somebody asks why, the boy says, he died. The girl looks off down the block, her thumb slowly rising to her mouth. The boy says, I was a baby. Says, she doesn't remember him, and points to his silent sister. Sometimes I lie about my father. He died, I say, in a car wreck, or he fell off a roof, or maybe he's coming soon, next week. and next week, and next week. But if my sister's nearby, she shakes her head, says she's making up stories again, says we don't have a father anymore, says our grandfather's our father now, says sometimes that's the way things happen. Uncle Robert. Uncle Robert has moved to New York City. I hear him taking the stairs 2 at a time, and then he is at our door, knocking loud until our mother opens it, curlers in her hair, robe pulled closed, whispering, "It's almost midnight. Don't you wake my children." But we were already awake, all 4 of us, smiling and jumping around my uncle. "What'd you bring me?" Our mama shushes us, says, "It's too late for presents and the like, but we want presents and the like." And she, too, is smiling now, happy to see her baby brother who lives all the way over in Far Rockaway, where the ocean is right there if you look out your window. Robert opens his hand to reveal a pair of silver earrings, says to my sister, "This is a gift for how smart you are. I want to be smart like Dell. I want someone to hand me silver and gold just because my brain clicks into thinking whenever it needs to, but I'm not smart like Dell." So I watch her press the silver moons into her ears. I say, "I know a girl 10 times smarter than her. She gets diamonds every time she gets 100 on a test." And Robert looks at me, his dark eyes smiling, asks, "Is that something you made up or something real?" In my own head, it's real as anything. In my head, all kinds of people are doing all kinds of things. I want to tell him this, that the world we're living in right here in Brownsville isn't the only place. But now my brothers are asking, "What'd you bring me?" And my uncle is pulling gifts from his pockets, from his leather briefcase, from inside his socks. He hands my mother a record, a small 45, James Brown, who none of us like because he screams when he sings. But my mother puts it on the record player, turned way down low, and then even us kids are dancing around. Robert's showing us the steps he learned at the Far Rockaway parties. His feet are magic, and we all try to slide across the floor like he does, our own feet, again and again, betraying us. "Teach us, Robert," we keep saying. "Teach us." Wishes. When he takes us to the park, Uncle Robert tells us, if you catch a dandelion puff, you can make a wish. Anything you want will come true, he says, as we chase the feathery wishes around swings, beneath sliding boards, until we can hold them in our hands, close our eyes tight, whisper our dream, then set it floating out into the universe, hoping our uncle is telling the truth, hoping each thing we wish for will one day come true. Believing. The stories start like this. Jack and Jill went up a hill, my uncle sings. "I went up a hill yesterday," I say. "What hill?" "In the park." "What park?" "Halsey Park." "Who was with you?" "Nobody." "But you're not allowed to go to the park without anyone." "I just did." "Maybe you dreamed it," my uncle says. "No, I really went." And my uncle likes the stories I'm making up. Along came a spider and sat down beside her. "I got bit by a spider," I say. "When?" "The other day." "Where?" "Right on my foot." "Show us." "It's gone now." But my mother accuses me of lying. "If you lie," she says, "one day you'll steal." "I won't steal." It's hard to understand how one leads to the other, how stories could ever make us criminals. It's hard to understand the way my brain works, so different from everybody around me. How each new story I'm told becomes a thing that happens in some other way to me. "Keep making up stories," my uncle says. "You're lying," my mother says. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between all that I'm told and memory.
Alrighty. We'll go back to the top. So, just initial reactions. What do you guys think? Do you like it? Nah. Some of you guys are kind of in the middle. Does it remind you of being a kid at all? Like some different things about being a kid?
No, not really.
No?
Yeah.
It definitely reminded me of being a kid. I know I'm an adult now and you guys are still kids, but it reminded me of my childhood.
So can it still be in our childhood?
I mean,
It reminded me of my friends.
of your friends maybe? Yoshi, did you ask if you were still in your childhood?
Yeah.
I would say you guys are, yeah.
Am I late?
I think so.
It reminded me of one of my friends.
Yeah. So, Charlie, you said it reminds you of one of your friends. That's a good thing to put in the connect box, that you have a connection to the story and one of your friends.
Because he makes up stories a lot.
Okay.
I don't really like when he does that.
No, it happens. But yeah, write that in the connect box. So what you guys need to start doing then is opening up that activity, the first read, and start putting in your initial reactions. You can start with who the story is about.
What is it? Where is it?
You can, Skylar, it's in, do you have the story pulled up?
No,
Well, you got to pull up the story first.
I don't know where the story is.
It's in Google Classroom. It's called Brown Girl Dreaming.
Oh, so I was on it.
Okay.
Am I late?
Yes. So you can add your who, your what it's about, when it was happening, where it was, and why people reacted the way they did. Okay, so there's some things for that one. Annotating in key passages is, I don't know if you guys noticed or if you're watching my screen, but kind of near the beginning when they were reading, I started highlighting and writing little notes. I kind of stopped because it was going a little fast, so I didn't keep going. I wanted to keep with the story. But if you want to go back and highlight some things, that would be a good idea. Mark up the passage a little bit. You can add any notes here about what you saw. So I noticed that the word, what was the word? Already was repeated a lot in one poem. So those are some things you can write in that one. So maybe I'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes. Why don't you guys work on those two to start with? And then I'll scroll down and we can add a few things to the connect and respond box. But for now, go ahead and take 2 or 3 minutes and add some ideas to those two boxes. What did you notice and what did you annotate? Okay, does that make sense? Take a few minutes for that. Alrighty, go for it. You guys doing all right? Any questions about what you're doing right now? All right, cool, keep going.
Mine's still loading.
Okay, that's fine. Just let it load and then you can catch up on it when it loads. do about 1 more minute, and then we'll talk about the final 2 things, and I will let you guys work on those. Yeah, Lottie, what's up? Where do we go on the story thing? Oh, like on the side to get this box?
Yeah.
Okay, so are you on the Brooklyn Rain story? You can see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is on the side. There's a tab called Making Meaning, and if you click that one open, there's like concept, vocabulary, first read, comprehension check. Do you see all those?
Mhm.
It's the first read one. So if you click on first read, it'll open, and there's that box.
Okay.
And then you click on the chart, and it should open up for you. Your guys's will save. Mine does not because it's the teacher side, and it's just like a preview. It doesn't save my work, just so you know. So your guys's will save.
Mine been loading ever since this morning.
That's all right. It'll load eventually. You might have to close it and open it back up a few times just to get it to load.
Okay.
All right. So you guys were working on the notice part, like who, what, when, where, why of the story or the poems. You can also go back and highlight and annotate anything that you think is important that connects to childhood, basically. Then down the bottom, we have the connect box and the respond. So the connection is anything that you connect to in the story or that can connect to something else that you've read. For me, one of the things that stood out was when they were playing board games. You guys have a lot more electronic-based things now, but when I was a kid, we definitely played a ton of board games, like the Monopoly. Have you guys even ever heard of Ants in the Pants? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, at least someone has.
No.
That, see, like, it's just like, that's something that I
I don't even know what that is.
Ants in the Pants is like, here, I'll put it back on me, and you guys can see me, right?
Yeah.
So Ants in the Pants is like, it's straight up like if these were like the legs of a pair of pants, you set them up and there's holes at the top, and you like the ants have like a flick thing on them, and you try to flick the ants into the pants. That's how the game works.
Oh. It has been a long time. I haven't played it in a long time.
I haven't played it in years. That's how I remember it. So that sort of stuff I connected to. So for me, I would say I made a connection to when the family was playing board games.
Yoshi. What?
How you
And
doing?
go ahead and eat until after we're done.
Hi.
How you doing? I said.
Oh, hi.
Skylar, Yoshi, please mute until we're all done. Thank you. So your guys' connection to the story is probably different from mine. Charlie said that he made a connection about his friend who likes to make up stories, so he can write that connection. So write 1 or 2 connections that you guys made to the story there. And then on the other part, the responding, you're just going to write a really, really brief summary, 1 or 2 sentences about the thing, just to remind you what it's about. So you could talk about it's about Jacqueline's childhood, her moving to New York, things like that. So
My friend's like that too. We've been friends ever since, I think, 4th grade.
that's cool.
So we've been friends for a long time. But he's going to move to Flag, but I don't know about that.
Okay.
Maybe. I think so. I don't know.
When you're writing your respond part, make sure they're in complete sentences, please. Okay. So I'll give you guys 2 or 3 minutes to work on those 2 boxes. Remember, you can always go back and open this up later and add more. You can reread these. I actually enjoyed these poems. I'm not going to lie, I'm not the biggest fan of poetry. It's never been my favorite type of writing or reading. But I enjoyed these ones. They were pretty fun.
Wow.
Skylar, please stay muted. We're almost done, and then you guys can talk a little bit. Time for school to start. Can you guys hear the bell when it goes off? Is it loud?
No.
Sorry, I can't control that.
It's still at its regular time.
It's gonna go off in another 5 minutes, so be aware. Alrighty, how you guys doing on that? You good? Done? If you're not, you can totally just stay on and work on it. But for today, that is all you needed to do. I know that for you guys in the top right, there's a place to click turn in. Is that correct? Okay, don't turn it in yet. We're gonna work on this for like the next week and a half on all those different sections that we can pull up. If you turn it in, I have to like return it to you so that you can keep working. So just leave it open. It's gonna say that you're not done. So just make sure you're finishing the sections that we do that day and you'll be all caught up with us. Does that sound good to you? Okay, so if you're not done with those couple of sections, I would stay on and keep working until you are done. But if you did finish and you're caught up with the concept vocabulary and the first read activities, you're all good to go for ELA for the day and you can head out. So I'm going to stay on for another half hour. You guys can stay on and ask questions. But other than that, you're all good for the day.